Welcome to Redtastic. Story 1. My fiancé and I have been together for about 6 years, engaged for 2. After we got engaged, we sat down and had the deal breakers talk. Basically, things in our lives are futures, hypothetical situations that leave little room for compromise. That is adopting children, finances, family boundaries, religion, etc. One of the things on my list was no prenup. I'm not here to debate with anyone about their use. I just think that if you're preparing for divorce before even getting married, it's a sign that you're probably marrying the wrong person. He agreed and everything was fine. Lately, his family, particularly his mother, keeps on bringing up signing a prenup. I've told her no many times. Said this is an issue between us and we will discuss it privately and make our own decisions as a couple. He also tells her no, although more weakly. Well, last night we went there for dinner and she brought out an actual prenup drafted by her lawyer. She put it in front of me after dinner and told me to sign. Obviously, I didn't even read it, let alone sign it. She called me a gold digger. No one, including my fiancé, stood up for me. So I stood up for myself. I told her that there is no gold to dig here. I make 4 times as much as he makes. I'm an MD and he dropped out second year. I've paid off all my student debt and he has over 100k left. I have my own house, ample savings, and will certainly inherit more from my parents than he will from his. They have 6 kids and are middle class. What is she worried about? That shut her up real quick, especially when my sister-in-law then said, if anything, he's the gold digger here. My fiancé is now angry with me. He said it was emasculating for his family to know I'm so much more successful than him. And his brothers are making jokes and changed his contact info to gold digger. Personally, I don't think I was rude or out of line. But he thinks I was an asshole and could have handled it better. Am I the a-hole here? Edit. We have never discussed my salary. I mean, obviously they knew I made more than him in an abstract way. He is ashamed of his place in life and I suspect he lies to his parents about his success. And they think he makes much more. I don't really care, so I have never gotten involved in this aspect. Everyone seemed shocked when I said how much more than him I make. I did not say an actual number, just that I make around 4 times more than him. To be honest, I'm second-guessing things. His family is Middle Eastern and traditional, but he was raised here, so he doesn't share the same values. As he gets older, he seems to be getting weaker when standing up to his parents. His parents see me below him because I'm a white and not a good girl. That is, want to cook, clean more than my fair share, am career-minded, want to adopt, don't want to be a stay-at-home mom, am not religious. This generally doesn't affect me because he usually stands up for me, and our time is limited with them. But I do feel it's getting worse. Now for some comments. If there's anything emasculating here, it's that your fiancé can't keep mommy out of his relationships, even as he approaches 40. Not the a-hole. He didn't stand up for you, so you did for yourself. That's on him. But I'd seriously reconsider a relationship with a partner who thinks it's emasculating to make less money. Not the a-hole at all. It's your and your boyfriend's decision, not his mother's. He's a big-time a-hole for not standing up for both you and your relationship. What does your future look like with a meddling mother-in-law and a no-backbone hubster? And honestly, given your situation, I'd sign the prenup. But I'd write it up to ensure he doesn't get a dime off you, as he clearly wants to prevent the opposite situation by not making his actual stance clear. I, female 18, have 3 siblings, 17 male, 15 female and 14 female. My mom has never been involved in our lives. She was around sometimes, and when my dad passed 5 years ago, she was almost unbothered and continued to live a life. A year later, she married an old friend of my dad's. Together, they went on all sorts of trips, made plans with just them, and my siblings and I were at my grandparents' house almost every day. The few times my mom cared to be around us was when she wanted to take family pictures to post online. Because of my mom being absent, my sisters relied on me to teach them about their periods, and I gave them the talk as well. I've been discussed those things nearly 2 to 3 years ago and did my best to explain everything I knew at 16, and it seemed to have done the job. Since quarantine, my mom has been forced to stay at home, and she pouted about it the first few months. Around July last year, she found out my younger sister was having periods and she got annoyed she wasn't the first one to know. My sister has been having them for over 2 years. Lately, my mother has been trying to talk to my sisters and offer them motherly advice, as she calls it. She's had no success, but still pushes it almost daily. Last year, my sister was having a really off day and went to bed earlier than normal. My mom kept bothering her and telling her it was too early to sleep. It was 9 p.m. and my sister blew up at her and told her to basically piss off. She came downstairs where my brother and I were at, and she started going on about how she blamed my dad for making us choose him as the favorite parent. And if it weren't for him, she'd have a better relationship with us. That much ticked me off because she chose to live some child-free lifestyle rather than be around us. She kept going on about how she missed so many milestones in our lives, like my sisters getting their first period or my brother getting his first girlfriend. Not once did she try to acknowledge she was the main reason she missed those things. Here's where I feel like an asshole. I blew up at her, completely lost it. I told her she needed not to blame my dead dad, and if she wanted to know the real reason she missed out, she should look in the mirror. She started crying and said I'm making her look like a bad mother. I ended it with she should feel like a bad mother because she is one. I've since felt awful for what I said, and I think I might have been too hard on her. Am I the a-hole? Now for some comments. Not the a-hole. You were harsh, but it sounds true. She didn't know one of her daughters had already had her periods for 2 years. If she really wants to take steps to repair relationships, the first step is to apologize. The second is to take steps to change. And the third is likely therapy. She'd also have to understand that simply saying you're a family again doesn't mean everything is fixed. Sorry for everything you've gone through. Sounds like you've been a stellar big sister though. Not the a-hole. Your mother seems to have confused you and your siblings with dolls and thought that she could basically ignore you for years and that you'd still be waiting in the toy box when she decided that she wanted to play with you again. Not the a-hole. Your mother doesn't even deserve the title. You and your grandparents have had to fill the void because she wanted to live without the burden of her own children. Her tears are not your fault or your problem. Just because someone cries doesn't make them a victim. I'm sorry you didn't get the mother you deserve. She's still... So my 27 male grandpa was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer that's metastasized into his bones. This past month, he suffered a severe heart attack, but was able to pull through with treatment. The family is now talking about what happens when he passes and how, with COVID, we're going to handle his visitation and funeral. I told my mom that I would come to the services with her to support her, but that I wouldn't mourn him. This sparked a large argument between us. As a child, and even now into adulthood, he's never been in my life. He's always prioritized my aunt's kids as his favorites and left us other grandkids behind. I told Mom that I didn't want to reach out and get to know him now that he's on hospice, when he never made that effort for me my entire life. She told me that it was on us too because we didn't live close to him, and my parents didn't take us to visit him often. She told me that I need to reach out now as an adult before it's too late, and I disagree. It also doesn't help that as I grew older, I learned the truth behind his divorce from my grandma. He was a serial cheater and never around for my mom and her siblings, but completely controlled every household decision and all of the finances. He didn't even make any attempts to hide his affairs. He would let my grandma find him in the bed with these women. All of this eventually drove her to require inpatient psychiatric care, which is when he finally divorced her. Now everyone in the family explains it away as, well, your grandma was very difficult to deal with. So your grandpa did what he could, but she was too much to handle. It infuriates me that the family is all so blasé about how he abused her and forgive him for it, just because she was depressed and later diagnosed bipolar. I don't think any of that is an excuse for his horrible treatment of her, or the way the family blames her for not ever getting help until after he left her and the kids on their own. And don't even get me started on how my grandpa has never hid the fact that even in his 70s, he's only pursued women between the ages of 18 to 21. He disgusts me on all levels. Am I the a-hole? Edit. I promise that I'm supporting my mom through this. She's my entire world. I don't want it to come across like I'm saying that I refuse to be there for her, even with all my misgivings about grandpa. Now for some comments. Not the a-hole. Blood doesn't make you obligated to someone. Showing up does. If you have no relationship with the man, why would you be forced to just because he's dying? That's not good for anyone involved. You're an adult and can make your own choices. Not the a-hole. I'm just going to my last grandparents' funeral on Wednesday and I just don't care. They were awful to me as a child and I feel nothing for her. My sister, who lives with me, is extremely upset as she was very close to them. She doesn't understand that our holidays there were very different for me, and I simply couldn't care less that they are now gone. Not the a-hole, but it would be a kindness to support your mom and do what you can to make her feel better about the situation. He may be a piece of crap, but that is her daddy, and that will always be her daddy. She has memories and feelings that you cannot fathom, because with a little bit of distance often comes truth. She still gets. I, 24 male, have been renting a 2-bedroom apartment for about 8 months. I had a new roommate move in with me in the past month, and he's a nice guy and we get along well. However, he has a girlfriend who's conservative, Asian Muslim to be specific, and she visits during nighttime since my roommate works during the day. The problem started when I once walked out my room while she was visiting. She was sitting in the living room and when she saw me, she stared for a whole minute. Then she freaked out shouting Arabic words and covering her face and head. I was puzzled. My roommate quickly pulled me into the kitchen and explained I can't just show up in the living room wearing what I'm wearing, which was a regular set of pajamas. He pointed that part of my chest was showing. He explained how she's conservative and by showing myself like that, I was making her guilty of committing a sin, even by just unintentionally looking. I apologized and said I'll be careful next time. She visited again days ago and stayed until around 10 p.m. I was asleep in my room and wanted to use the bathroom. I walked to it and saw her getting out, drying her hands. She froze in her place when she saw me, stared for a few seconds, then yelled, causing my roommate to rush out the kitchen asking what's going on. She grabbed her stuff and walked out immediately. My roommate lashed out at me, asking what the hell I was wearing. I was so effing confused, still shaken up from her screaming. I was wearing a red t-shirt and shorts. I was super confused, like I wasn't even topless or anything. He argued that I was being disrespectful to him and his girlfriend, and doing this on purpose since he already asked me to be a little more considerate towards his girlfriend. I had an argument with him after he demanded that I stay in my room during his girlfriend visiting hours, and called him unreasonable since I have to use the bathroom for medical reasons. He then begged me to do this favor for him, but I ended up saying I'd be contacting my landlord and it got worse. His girlfriend is no longer allowed to visit because of what happened, and my roommate is saying it's unfair because she can't see him anywhere else. Don't know why. He says it's my fault and I should have made adjustments to make it work for both sides.